Welcome back to Kafka Internals Crashcasts. I'm your host, Sheila, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of Kafka metrics and JMX. We're currently in Level 3, Jedi Master, exploring the internal architecture and advanced topics of Kafka. This episode is part of our chapter on monitoring and metrics. Before we begin, listeners should be familiar with basic Kafka concepts and have a general understanding of system monitoring. Victor, are you ready to unravel the mysteries of Kafka metrics?
Absolutely, Sheila. I'm excited to share insights on this crucial aspect of Kafka management. Metrics are the key to understanding the health and performance of our Kafka clusters.
Great. Let's start with a quiz question for our listeners. Here's a tricky one. What's the difference between a Kafka broker metric and a Kafka producer metric? Think about it, and we'll reveal the answer at the end of the episode. Victor, any thoughts on this question without giving away the answer?
That's an excellent question, Sheila. It really gets to the heart of understanding Kafka's architecture and how different components interact. I think listeners will need to consider the roles of brokers and producers in the Kafka ecosystem to tackle this one. It's not as straightforward as it might seem at first glance.
Indeed. Now, before we dive deeper, could you give us a brief overview of what metrics are in the context of Kafka?
Certainly. In Kafka, metrics are quantifiable measurements that provide insights into the performance, health, and behavior of various Kafka components. Think of them as the vital signs of your Kafka cluster. Just as a doctor monitors a patient's heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature, Kafka administrators use metrics to gauge the system's overall health and performance.
That's a great analogy, Victor. So, how do we actually access these metrics in Kafka?
That's where JMX comes in. JMX stands for Java Management Extensions, which is a Java technology that provides tools for managing and monitoring applications. Kafka exposes its metrics through JMX, making it possible to collect and analyze these metrics using various monitoring tools.
Interesting. Can you elaborate on how JMX works with Kafka?
Of course, JMX acts as a standardized way to expose metrics from Java applications. In Kafka's case, it allows us to access a wide range of metrics from different components of the Kafka ecosystem. These metrics are organized into mbeans, or managed beans, which are objects that represent resources, devices, or services in the Kafka system. Think of mbeans as containers holding various metrics for different parts of Kafka.
That's helpful, Victor. Now, let's talk about the types of metrics available in Kafka. What are some key categories we should be aware of?
Great question. Kafka metrics can be broadly categorized into three main types: broker metrics, producer metrics, and consumer metrics. Broker metrics provide information about the Kafka server itself, such as the number of active controllers or the request rate. Producer metrics give insights into message production, like the average request latency. Consumer metrics focus on message consumption, including metrics like consumer lag.
That's a lot to take in. Could you give us an example of a specific metric and how it might be used?
Certainly. Let's take the under-replicated partitions metric as an example. This is a broker-level metric that indicates the number of partitions that don't have enough replicas. If this number is high, it could signal issues with broker availability or network problems. Monitoring this metric helps ensure data reliability and system stability.
That makes sense. Now, I've heard that accessing these metrics can sometimes be challenging. What are some common ways to collect and visualize Kafka metrics?
You're right, Sheila. While JMX provides access to metrics, collecting and visualizing them often requires additional tools. Many organizations use monitoring systems like Prometheus in conjunction with visualization tools like Grafana. These tools can pull metrics from JMX, store them, and create dashboards for easy monitoring. Additionally, Kafka ships with a metrics reporter that can export metrics to external systems.
That's really useful information, Victor. Are there any best practices you'd recommend for monitoring Kafka metrics?
Absolutely. First, it's crucial to identify the key metrics that matter most for your specific use case. Don't try to monitor everything at once. Focus on metrics that give you actionable insights. Second, set up alerts for critical thresholds to catch issues early. Lastly, regularly review and adjust your monitoring strategy as your Kafka deployment evolves.
Great advice. Now, let's address a common misunderstanding. Some people think that simply collecting all available metrics will automatically improve their Kafka cluster's performance. What's your take on this?
That's a great point, Sheila. Collecting metrics is just the first step. The real value comes from interpreting them correctly and taking appropriate actions. It's not about having more metrics, but about having the right metrics and understanding what they mean for your specific deployment. Over-monitoring can lead to alert fatigue and make it harder to identify real issues.
Thanks for clarifying that, Victor. Now, as we wrap up, let's reveal the answer to our quiz question. What's the difference between a Kafka broker metric and a Kafka producer metric?
Great question. The main difference is in what they measure and where they originate. Broker metrics are generated by the Kafka server itself and provide information about the broker's performance, such as request rates, network usage, and partition status. Producer metrics, on the other hand, come from the Kafka client libraries and focus on the process of sending messages, including metrics like batch size, compression rate, and request latency.
Excellent explanation, Victor. To summarize today's episode, we've learned that Kafka metrics are crucial for monitoring cluster health and performance. These metrics are exposed through JMX and can be collected using various monitoring tools. We discussed broker, producer, and consumer metrics and highlighted the importance of focusing on relevant metrics and interpreting them correctly.
That's a great summary, Sheila. Remember, effective monitoring is key to maintaining a healthy and performant Kafka cluster.
Absolutely. In our next episode, we'll be exploring monitoring tools like Prometheus and Grafana in more detail. Don't forget to subscribe to Kafka Internals Crashcasts and leave us a rating if you've found this helpful. Until next time, keep those Kafka clusters running smoothly.